Welcome to Life Hacks Beyond Convention with Dee and Sonia.
Yeah, I know. Every day, we just don't know what tomorrow is going to bring, do we?
No, it's hard not to worry about tomorrow in some ways, but then you can't impact it. I guess you can attempt to impact it in the decisions you make today, but there's no guarantee. So it's like hedging your
Yeah.
bets.
Yeah, I know. How do you manage? How do you manage considering tomorrow
Mm,
while still living your best day today?
yeah. Mm,
I don't think very many of us get it right the first time round.
yeah.
I think
I don't
I
know
think
that.
we need a bit of practice.
I think we'd all rewrite history at different times, or especially after we're gone, if we could go back, we'd rewrite some of the history. But equally, every decision's a choice that, yeah, you just got to step into, don't you? So,
I can honestly say I don't have a lot of decisions I've made in my life that I actively regret. Now, there are a lot of decisions in my life that I've actively learned from,
yes.
and
Yeah.
if I made those same decisions now with new understanding, I
Yeah.
would regret those decisions because you made a poor choice. But yeah, I don't. There's not really very many. There are one or two that I probably wish I hadn't made, but on the whole, I just think we just got to learn from the decisions we make and
Yeah.
move on.
What's the
Like,
lesson? And you wouldn't
yeah,
have learnt the lesson if you hadn't made that decision. So it doesn't matter
mm,
what the decision was, it's still the best decision, because it brought
mm,
that lesson that you needed. Well,
mm.
that's how I'm looking at mine. I mean, crumbs, you know, multiple marriages and divorces. Um, yeah,
That's right. Who's counting? I've gone through two, so
I've had three. Yeah, and Tony was certainly the best decision ever. Um, but yeah, I needed to go make the same similar decision three times in a row before my thick head got it all.
Mm,
But there's also been other more subtle lessons through each case too. Uh,
mm,
I mean, culturally, in the late 70s, I was still marrying to get out of home, and so was the lad I
mm,
married. Like, we wanted to get away
mm,
from our parents, so we ran away
mm,
together, so to speak. Um,
mm,
God, what a disaster.
mm,
But yeah, lots of self-reflection lessons learnt in that. Yeah. And then
mm,
the second time, we were very much guided by a church group, actually. So
mm,
that decided we should marry, and we ruined a good friendship. So that's, yeah.
mm.
And the third time was, I think I should, because babies and all that sort of stuff. And I was incredibly lonely. When I came back from Western Australia,
Mm,
I was, yeah, yeah, in a really, really low place. So I was ripe for
mm.
the picking. So,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, well, see, my first marriage, like I can't even regret that. Now I did learn from that some lessons,
mm,
but like that's where my kids came from. You can't
yeah,
regret that, can you?
no,
It's,
not at all.
no.
No.
So I try. I one of the biggest lessons I guess I learned from that is that um, if someone's got behaviors towards somebody else, like if they're treating other people in a bad way, then they will eventually treat you that way too, even though you're not being treated that way at the moment. And
Yes.
that was, so I've tried to remember that lesson.
Mm. And behavior is a language. People tell
Mm.
us who they are. Yeah, straight away.
Well, I just remember like the way he treated some people in his life wasn't the best, and
Mm.
I was aware of that, but he never treated me that way.
Mm. So you
So,
thought that it was the other person's fault, or
well, I don't. No,
just
I
that
didn't even
dynamic.
think that. Yeah, I didn't even think that. I just think, well, he's not treating me that way. That's all I thought. I didn't even think about it more deeply than that at that
Yeah.
point. Um, and even yeah. However, now, as you look back, you can see, well, like the story was always there
The
that,
writing was on the wall. Mm,
yeah, that if he was put in a, I don't know, a position where for whatever reason,
mm.
yeah, he would eventually treat me that
Yeah.
way as well,
Yeah.
and he did. So
And then
yeah,
there's the other sort of end of the spectrum is that if you're being love bombed by a narcissist, they absolutely sweep you off your feet. They're the best, they
well,
treat you better than anybody else. So if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. And that's how scammers are getting away. Was
oh my goodness, yeah,
the news the other night, there was this woman who's complained about a scammer Dr. Chris, the vet. She's been having
haven't,
an online, he's a blonde bloke, looks like the Bonds ad from decades ago. Gorgeous, vet, Sydney, does a TV program. And she met him online 2 years ago, supposedly. And they've been having this online relationship for two
mm,
years. And she's devastated because she's worked out it's a scammer and she spent thousands and given him thousands and thousands of
mm.
dollars. And it's just like, I'm sorry, do you have a mirror? Like
Well, yeah.
she, yeah,
And it's even more than the thousands and thousands of dollars. It's thousands and thousands of hours of your life
yeah,
that you
and
never get back
emotions.
to.
Yeah.
Mm,
And she's been
mm,
emotionally destroyed by this situation, but it's so unrealistic. Yeah.
mm,
And we've all bought the program at some stage. I've done it too,
mm.
somebody or some situation. Um,
Well, that's, I look at my second marriage and I was just in a really vulnerable place
you were right for
then.
the
I,
picking then too.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I had some health issues. I'd been on my own for years as a single mum by then. So you're just in a vulnerable place.
And
And
they make it like they're rescuing you.
yeah,
Mm,
absolutely.
yes.
Absolutely.
Mm,
So I mean that was a very short-lived
yeah.
actual time, thank goodness. Short-lived. I wish it was even shorter lived than it
Yeah.
was, but
I
because it did
bought,
end up dragging on for about, I don't know whether it was 4 years or five
oh
years.
yes, it always goes on afterwards with
Mm,
that type. And I bought into your situation too. I thought it was
mm,
wonderful. I just thought, oh, isn't
mm,
this fantastic?
mm,
These people on the same wavelength, and I didn't pick it up, and I had been married to a narcissist.
mm.
So yeah,
Yeah, we just, well, and sometimes it's the things that we've learned as well. Like some of, I don't know, some of the ideas I had in my head that were just not real.
yeah, mm, yeah.
Like I can't even,
Expectations.
yeah, maybe,
Yeah. Mm,
yeah, just, yeah. Anyway,
yeah.
like there's just a whole lot of trigger of things, isn't there, that
Yeah.
can bring us to that place where
Mm.
we make decisions that aren't necessarily in our own, like they're not good decisions.
Well,
Having said
they
that,
appear to be that, but
having
once
said that,
again,
that's one of those things. Do I actually regret it? I wish that my girls hadn't got embedded in a domestic violence situation, which is what we ended up
yes,
in for a short period of time. I
yeah,
do regret that aspect of it, yes.
mm,
But I can't regret a lot of the other things that go with it. Like it meant
yeah,
that I'd moved to Ballarat. If I hadn't moved to Ballarat, maybe I wouldn't have got to go to university. I might
yeah,
not have got to go and become a teacher. I might not have been able to, work at a university in a teaching capacity. Like, so there's all of these things. My girls might not have got to university. I mean, we can't say they wouldn't have. I don't know. But
yeah,
the reality is, country, South Australia, where we were, those opportunities were
not
not
available.
as prolific. And I wasn't in a, because a lot of people, their kids still get to go to university in Adelaide and that.
Mm, because they're
But I
wealthy.
wasn't, yeah, but I wasn't necessarily in a financial position where would have I been able to make that happen if that's what one of them had wanted
Yeah,
to do. I don't know.
yeah,
We can speculate all we like. Who
yes,
knows what would have
yeah,
happened? But But I do know what did happen, and I do know the opportunities that did come out of that, and I
Yes.
can't really regret any of them.
No, that's just it. I'm the same with lots of decisions, you know. The reality is, if I hadn't stepped left on that footpath, I'm 67, so, you know, 65 years ago, all of this other stuff wouldn't have had, like, it's all part of it. It's all, what is it, that butterfly effect, where, yeah, one little choice just changes all the trajectories
So I
constant.
know I remember. Do you remember that movie years and years ago, Sliding Doors?
Oh,
And
yes.
yeah, and it's like, say, half the movie was, they went through the train door, was it? And the other
Oh,
half where they
yeah,
did
I
it. So
think
I can't
so.
remember exactly. But yeah, that's it. And it's just one decision. And it's a decision made in a split second
Yes.
that can just take you on a completely different path.
Yeah. And people
Mm.
struggle making decisions, but sometimes you just got to step out and do it. Sometimes you can undo a decision but you can't undo it, but you can choose to go on a different direction.
Mm.
You can turn again. What is it? Three lefts make a right. Do
One of
three
my
left
friends
or
many years ago, and I use this, and I know I was talking to one of my kids because they use this as well. So this principle that she told me, she just said, "For goodness sake, Sonia, it's okay. Just make the decision, and if you've made the wrong decision, you can change your mind."
yes, yes.
And that was really powerful because often with those, because this possibly happens for overthinkers, which I'm definitely,
Oh,
you know what one of my superpowers is? I'm an overthinker.
yes, kiddo.
Which
I'd like to put
so
in here that because we can have these discussions because we're both overthinkers. So hence the discussions go like this too.
so often I'm overthinking decisions, and that was what she recognized. I said, you just need to make a decision, Sonia, and it's okay, because if you've made the wrong decision, you can change your mind. And that was really quite liberating and freeing, because
Mm,
what often happens is you just make the decision. Like, I still don't, I still have to overthink everything, but at
yeah.
least I can come to a point where I can actually make the decision. And within that process of making the decision, I found usually in yourself, whether it's right or wrong. And so it's like, well, if it was wrong, you just change your mind.
Yeah, exactly.
And that is so liberating. But 8 times out of 10, it's usually the right decision anyway.
Yeah. I was
Mm.
suddenly made a sole parent when I lived in Borough, and then the house was going to be sold. I was renting, and I had to go to Adelaide or Clare, did all the math. We talked about this once before, did the whole matrix thing, worked it all out, and Adelaide won, and I went, oh, I'm not going to Adelaide, I'm going to Clare. So,
Yeah, so
not,
that's it. You
yeah,
made the decision and you knew it was wrong. Yeah,
yeah. And
yeah.
I call that tossing a coin in your head. Sometimes you just got to pick one
Mm.
side and do it. And then, like you said, if it's wrong, well, do something
You can
different.
change your mind.
Yeah, change
Yeah,
your mind. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's it.
And certainly
Yeah,
when it's
exactly.
when it's big decisions around financial stuff and housing and stuff like that, it can be challenging. But there's often another way to deal with it if you feel you've made the wrong decision or yeah. So mm,
One of the biggest things that I think's helped me through the years, and this comes back to slightly being an overthinker, but but this aspect of it has assisted me, is I try and work out what's the worst case scenario. If I make that decision, what's the very worst thing that can happen? So you
yes.
go through and you work out, well, the worst thing that can happen is A, B, or C. And then you can kind of go into that, walk into the decision that you've made. And
Mm,
if you find that the worst scenario happens, you're already prepared for it.
yes. Yeah.
And it actually usually isn't that bad,
Yeah.
because my thing is, because I work through what's the worst thing that can happen. If I
Mm.
can't cope with that worst thing, I don't make that, I change the decision.
Exactly. And I had someone tell me that
Mm.
I was catastrophizing because I was thinking that way. And I went, well, I don't see it that way because I'm not
Oh,
going to live in that catastrophe. What I'm doing
no,
is saying, what is the worst case scenario? If that were to be the case, how would I mitigate it? Or how would I mitigate it
exactly.
prior? and if I can't, then like you said, you don't make the decision, you go in another direction. To me,
Absolutely.
that's just a deeper form of processing
Mm,
forward challenges. Yeah.
mm,
Mm. So,
exactly. Exactly.
yeah.
It's like, well, can I live with that worst case scenario or not?
Yeah.
Yeah. And if I do find myself in that worst case scenario, what would I do?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. How would you
Yeah.
get out of that situation? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Mm.
right.
Yeah.
Or even as simple as, if
Mm.
I find myself in that worst case scenario, is it that bad?
Yes.
Does it even matter?
Yeah.
And
Exactly.
sometimes the answer is no. No, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter. Like, if that's the worst case scenario, why on earth didn't I make this decision years ago?
I was working for a large corporation in WA, and 2 weeks before the financial crash, I bought a new car,
Mm,
and then I got laid off,
mm,
and the car
mm.
payments were more than the dole payment. And I just
Yeah.
had no way of managing. So I literally got in the car and drove back to South Australia, ended up leaving all my furniture there, lost all that. But then, yeah, I wouldn't have ended up here. It was a crisis
Mm.
at the time, but so I'm happy it happened. Hit the subscribe button below if you want to follow Life Hacks Beyond Convention.